On December 6th, well, I came to work. I had to come to work at 3 o'clock in the morning on December 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was up at 3 o'clock and in the galley, and then I had to shut the range, just get it started and get it going. And at about 6 o'clock in the morning, well, then we had to shut everything down because at 4 o'clock in the morning we went to general quarters, and then we were up there for a couple hours, Then I have to go down and start it all over again, and then at 6 o'clock in the morning you shut it down, and go back again. So, and that's why the galley, the galleys in the galley deck house had two guns on top of it, one on the port side and one on the starboard side. The 4-inch guns, they were main guns, and I was a sight setter on gun number 2, which was on the port side.
Okay.
Yeah, and gun number 1 is up on the bow, and the ship is shaped like this, Well, their gun is right in the middle on the forecastle up forward, so they could shoot either to the left or to the right. But it's inboard, and they can't get if the target's too close to you, they can't bear down far enough. So when they fired their number 1 gun, they couldn't get it low enough to hit the target. It was so close.
Wow. That's
an unusual thing. And the bullet went over the top of the thing. They could see that happen. And then the gun number 3 was on the starboard side of the galley deck house, and that gun is right on the edge of the thing, so they could point it right down practically. But it's too close for a rangefinder to give them any range, because for Navy range finding, usually only starts at about 600 yards.
Oh.
And this thing is way in close, so they had to just kind of barrel point the gun at the thing, and it worked, and they hit it right in the.
So can you bring us up to events starting from 0600 on 7 December?
0600?
Yeah, 0600.
Well, we're at general quarters.
Okay.
So everybody's at their battle station, and nobody knows what's really going on there, because this thing is floating along there with just the conning tower sticking out, and it's not very big. So a lot of people thought it's maybe some kind of a buoy or something came loose. Then when they could see that they could see the periscope sticking out at the top of it, which was only sticking out about that far above the top of the.
Wow, that isn't much.
And the conning tower was only about 5-6 feet tall. So we saw that, and we didn't know what it was because it had no markings on it, no numbers.
Wow. And
no letters. And there was a PBY plane flying around. It just noticed it. He noticed it. He thought it was probably something that belonged to us and it was in trouble. And he dropped a smoke bomb on it to help us find it. But we already saw it, and we were going at it. And orders are for anybody in there that doesn't belong in there, they can be fired on even in peacetime.
Mm-hmm.
So our captain had just been captain one day.
Wow.
And he took command the day before. And he thought he was going to ram it. He thought he'd ram this thing because he didn't know what it was. So he kicked it up to 20 knots. And he heads at it, and then he gets to thinking. He tells us this all later afterwards. He tells us, oh, gee, if I do this, I'm going to damage my ship. I'll probably lose my ship. It'll be the shortest command in history, he said. But he decided then the submarine's going like this, and we're coming at him from this angle, and he's going to ram it. Well, then he decides to go to fire on it. He said, well, fire it when you load and fire. So they fired at it. Number 1 gun fired at it from this distance, and they were so close to it that the thing went over. Mm-hmm. And he got back, went right across, right in front of it, and the other gun number 4 fired backwards at it this way, and they hit it. But we're going 20 knots. the shot is a miracle shot.
Wow.
And to hit it right at the water line.
And you were on which gun number?
I was on gun number 2. I was
You were
on the
two.
port side.
Okay.
The action
4 is the
was
one
all
that-
on the starboard side.
Okay.
I don't know why, but they always seem to favor the starboard side for taking pictures and everything. But you have to be at your station. You're getting orders, what's happening, and you have to. Your gun's pointed out that way in case something shows up over there.
Mhm.
So we have to be at that thing. So anyway, they hit that, and then they looked in. Then we're going like this, and in the stern of the ship, they're coming so fast they almost hitting us. Then they cross behind where we go over, and we dropped depth charges off
Okay.
for a set at 100 feet, and then they came across and were right over the top of them when those things exploded. They pushed a lot of water up and pushed it around, but didn't do any damage to it because they were down 100 feet. But anyway, the water started to come in. The bow started to go down, and they probably were dead in there because it's with shell landed right in where they were.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the water goes in there, and this is a long, hollow tube. There's no watertight integrity on there.
Yeah.
And you got a hole this big, and the deeper you get, the more the water squirts. So it filled in, and it went right to the bottom. But on a long circle, they thought, because where it was hit wasn't where it sunk. It made a long circle and went out farther. That's what they found out later when
Wow.
they discovered it, because Bob Ballard, Bob Ballard, he went down there and had a couple of our crew, and he even had a Japanese submariner captain.
Wow.
And they're all pointing to where we hit it, and the thing really went out a ways apparently, because after they found it in 1,200 feet of water, it was out in a little different spot. So, but they did find it, and it's just sitting upright down there, and torpedoes still on it, but they don't want anybody touching it because it could be the Japanese they mine their stuff so that if they want to abandon it, after they shoot their torpedoes off, they'll pull up alongside of a ship and then blow themselves up and the ship with it. So
So what time was that shot?
that shot was about I'd say 6:40 or something like that.
Okay.
Not exactly sure exactly, but what was happening at this, then everything. Nobody wanted to believe that we were shooting at it. The people that were on duty on Sunday said they had all junior officers had to don't want to say. Well, they always say, well, why didn't you guys shot that an hour before the airplanes came? Why didn't they get all the airplanes ready to go off? Well, the Army had all the planes on the fields. They didn't want to put them out toward the edge of the field because they were afraid there'd be damaged by spies.
Yeah, they were put in there because
So they put them out there.
sabotage.
They had them all lined just nice and then when the planes come, they just boom. Well, they say, well, it takes 4 hours to get these planes all manned. They got to get the guys up, man them, put the ammunition in the guns and all that stuff. You'd think they'd have it more ready, but they weren't. It takes 4 hours, so
Wow.
that's why it was so what. We only shot down. I'm not talking about our gun. We didn't shoot anybody down. We had two machine guns on there, and they both jammed up on us. And those planes that had dropped off things, the torpedo planes that had dropped off things, and some of their fighter planes that were just machine gunning and everything, they'd fly right over us. They almost knock our crow's nest off.
Wow.
But our guns are jammed. Now we're sitting there. We can't shoot anything with the big guns because they're pointing that direction. And even when they went past, well, it was too late by that time because they all went different directions. See, the Japanese didn't want to go back to their ships. Instead of tell us where they were. So they're north of us, and they're they're going off, turning this way, turning that way. One of them even crash landed on an island down there.
Wow.
And then we had aircraft, no aircraft carriers inside of the harbor.
Yeah.
Just battleships and all the other type of ships. But there was a aircraft carrier coming. We were 200 miles away, but the Japanese are up here and they're down that way.
Wow.
And they didn't know what was going on there. And what they do before they land, the ship lands, they have 18 planes take off and they kind of patrol everything out ahead of it. And then one of them came into Pearl Harbor to land, and he's saying he's not, and of course everybody is gun happy by that time. They shot him down. They never did find out what happened, so his plane went down and that. Don't know what's going on, Nobody's, at that time, there's nobody shooting at us, and there's no marking to tell us who they are. We didn't know they were Japanese. We didn't know that they had 26 submarines about 5 miles out in a half circle. We found that out after the war. They got all this, and
so was there a lot of
they're
excitement?
just waiting. And so what happened is when the Japanese they sent 350 some planes after us at a total of 2 different times. There was about a 15-minute spot in between the first attack and the second attack, and so they were different kind of planes. But what happened is everybody's wondering now what happened there, and our people only shot down, I think, about 6 planes in that first attack.
What time did you see the first planes coming through?
About almost 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It was almost 8 o'clock because there was some, and then of course they attacked and did a lot of damage, and we were attacked. We had 2 planes come at us, but they were flying in formation like this, and we're a target in the middle. And I heard that they had 15 and 16-year-old pilots in there. Later on, we found out, and they never figured out what I went to a thing where they studied the mistake they made. It was bombing Pearl Harbor to begin with, but the mistakes they made. They had planes coming in from all 4 directions, but they didn't tell them which way to peel off. So they were in danger of crashing into one another.
Oh.
And we had these 2 planes flying at us. They're coming in like this. And of course our ship's only it's about 30 some feet wide. Or is it 42 feet wide? At the widest point. And then it narrows down to nothing. And of course they came flying over, and they were flying in formation. And so they have to keep far apart so they don't crash, the wingtips don't touch. So when they dropped their bombs, they each dropped a 500-pound bomb is what they figured they were. They landed not on the ship, but one on one side of the ship and one on the other side of the ship, and the ship went up a little bit, but it didn't do any damage. We thought we had it for sure when we saw them coming. Well, that was as close as the call. And there, we were getting more damage from our own anti-aircraft stuff was coming down on top. So, see, the Japanese never bombed the city.
No.
But a lot of there were some 65 civilians killed, but a lot of our shells from the battleships didn't go off, and they went into where the civilians were. So there was some friendly fire there, but I don't know how many. But they never machine gunned or bombed the city itself. They just were after us.
So now, when you damaged and subsequently killed the sub, where did you guys go after that? Were you just still stuck in the same area doing the figure eights?
Yeah, I went back to just doing that again because, and of course, the minesweepers are out there too, and we're thinking we're out here on patrol and there's they think there's mines out here, you know, and but that's what, we didn't give much thought at that because of the planes and everything, but yeah,
When did it hit you that this was real?
well, when they start dropping the bombs, and of course we knew there was something wrong going on there. And then there was a group of our Air Force came with some B-17s were coming from the States, and they were coming in about the same time as the Japanese came in. And so when the radar was reporting a lot of these planes coming, we were expecting our own planes to show up.
Okay.
And our own planes had no guns on them because or ammunition, because they were flying from California, and they wanted to keep the weight down, so they had no ammunition, no guns.
And we were still peacetime then.
Yeah, of course. And then our radio man on our ship, he picked up the one of the planes' radios, and they're asking, what's going on down there? They said, well, don't come down here. Don't land at Hickam Field. Whatever you do, don't land at Hickam Field. Go someplace else. And most of them did, but one did go down, and they got all shot to pieces. But they went to different islands and landed at golf courses and every place else. They had a mess, really had a mess there.
While all this was going on, what else did you see? I mean, I'm sure you probably had a really keen focus, but can you just bring us through what was going through your eyes at that time?
Well, just watching all those planes fly, we just see them flying right over, you know. It couldn't. Gee, too bad we couldn't shoot them down, because it would have been so easily if we'd had 20 millimeters. We put 10 of them on there afterwards. After when they rebuilt the ship again. But you've never felt so helpless in your life. You're sitting at your gun, doing what you're supposed to do, but nobody to shoot at, because nobody would get down in your target area. So you feel pretty helpless, and you're just wondering, I don't know, you don't seem to be afraid, you just seem more, why can't I do something? I couldn't do anything. That was our problem.
What did you see going on in the harbor?
Well, we couldn't see too much in the harbor. We knew the smoke. The smoke was burning there, put out a plume of smoke that just covered the whole thing. I never saw so much smoke in my life, and all that burning of those ships and that. And of course, we're wondering what's going on. Now we're getting things on our sound gear that we're getting soundings on, but we got a World War I equipment, and that stuff would give us soundings on fish and schools of fish. We couldn't tell the difference, I guess, is what they tell me. I don't know that much about it, but we dropped, I think it was 800. Over 800, was it 800? No, it was 88 depth charges on soundings. And we thought we had Japanese, we didn't know Japanese. We didn't know who they were until we saw the round circle on their planes. But we were getting soundings from there, but we were killing a lot of fish too, is what was happening. So we felt, you just what's going on? You know, we're getting killed here. Who are they? Well, we found out they were Japanese once we could see the red circle on their planes, but up until that time we didn't know. And they were more prepared for it when they came back. The second wave, they lost 20 some planes there, because we had there were some pilots that. We had some pilots that came from some remote airfields, okay. And a couple of pilots came in and they shot down, I think a couple of pilots there shot down 7 of their planes, but I think they lost 28 planes in the second, something like that. And in fact, I got a sheet of paper that tells you what the casualty rates were on both sides.
So now after the second wave, it pretty much cleared out. And the whole harbor was filled with smoke. then what happened with the war? I mean, what was your next?
Well, we
order
had
of
to go
business?
in and get some more depth charges. So about 11 o'clock in the morning, we went into Pearl Harbor, and we didn't go. We could see what was going on, and we saw, boy, this is really bad. But the ammunition depot is in, like here's where all the battleships are lined up. The ammunition depot is over here, the place. So we went over there and picked up those depth charges, and then we went right back out on patrol again. So, but they were worried. They were worried somebody would get sunk in that harbor, and they'd block it off. But it's not a very wide place, but it's not very long either. So it doesn't take long to get through there. But if you sunk a battleship in there, you'd probably make it tough to go in and out. It all depends on where they would sink it. Because one of the battleships the Nevada got underway, and they were told not to go out there because they were afraid to get sunk. So they ran aground on what they call Hospital Point, and they ran aground there. And then later on they were told to get off of there, and then they went back down a different place. And so that, but they were told not to go in that channel because they didn't want anybody to get sunk there. And they lost 54 men on there from.
A friend of mine used to serve on the Nevada.
Who was that?
Ernie Matson. He was from Minneapolis.
Ernie Matson. It doesn't sound familiar.
He was
But
there
I
on
know-
December 7th.
Maybe I wonder if he belonged to our when I was president of the Twin City chapter of Pearl Harbor Survivors, and there were at one time there were over 500 Pearl Harbor survivors that lived in Minnesota. And there's a northern chapter, a southern chapter, and then our Twin City chapter.
Okay.
And we were split at one time. We had a St. Paul chapter, and we had a Minneapolis chapter. But we would try to go to each other's thing, and they say, "Well, this is silly. Why don't we just get together?" And because nobody wants to be and of course, I was the youngest guy, so that's the reason I'm still here. All the other guys have died off, so. And there may still be some alive, but they're in such bad shape I don't know about them.
Yeah.
But I know of one other guy that he was on the Nevada, as a matter of fact. And he still lives in the suburbs someplace. I can't remember exactly where.
Do you remember his name?
Walt is his first name, but I can't seem to get it through my mind what his last name was. But he's part Indian.
I met him once,
Yeah,
about almost 10 years ago.
yeah. Was very active, and he had been president at that time. But he's my guy that handles the money. What do you call it? The
Treasurer?
treasurer. He's the treasurer, but we don't have any money, so he doesn't have anything to do. But the last time I saw him, we were at Fort Snelling Chapel, and we do something at Pearl Harbor, the Sunday nearest Pearl Harbor out there. And he's gotten old, and he's not driving anymore, and so that's the last I'll see him probably.